Spring, good morning. I actually said it right, didn't say J-Fall. I'm very happy about myself. Welcome to our keynote presentation today about the dawn of AI and what it means to developers, where quite obviously we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. More specifically, we're going to look at large language models, which have been in the spotlight lately, kind of speculate on what it might do to the industry that we're all in, and then talk about how you can use it as a developer, utilize these tools to develop more efficiently. Before I continue, please note, you can scan this QR code because we have a little bit of an interactive poll element. It might be smart to make sure you're connected to data. I don't know if the Wi-Fi will be able to handle it. Scan the QR code, it will open a web page, and in a little bit, we're going to have a poll where you can vote on some statements. So take a second, scan it, open it, and just keep your phone ready. In the meantime, I'm very happy to welcome on the stage John Sterken, co-founder of Chillit. Outside of managing a company, John also somehow finds the time to work as a Java developer and a product owner. So very happy to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you, Lennart, for that very kind introduction. It does seem like only yesterday that we had J-Fall, but it's been 7 months. It's crazy. Maybe you remember Lennart. I don't know, are there people who joined J-Fall last time? See a few hands? Oh, there are a lot more. Maybe you remember him. He gave a talk about Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6. And today he is going to also enlighten you with a talk about the internals of the JVM. Lennart is a very passionate Java developer who really likes to go under the hood and see what's there. And that's what he specializes in. And today he's going to enlighten you with some things that he found there.
Thank you very much, John. And yeah, it does just seem like yesterday that it was J-Fall and I stood all the way over. It's quite far away, Ada, I believe. But maybe some of you were maybe at least at J-Spring last year. It might seem like yesterday, but a lot has happened. Major tech organizations are cleaning house. Apple just recently announced they're joining the very competitive market of virtual reality. And let's not forget about AI either, which is the topic of our keynote today. You've all heard about ChatGPT. We know you already hold opinions about what it's going to do to the industry. That's why we want to do a little bit of an interactive session today. And before we get to that, though, I want to give a little bit of a rundown of what large language models like ChatGPT are, for those of you in the room who may not be familiar. This is going to be purely high-level, functional, no mathematics or complex drawings. But I want to explain where it kind of fits into the big circle of AI, because everyone will know the term artificial intelligence. This is kind of an umbrella term for all software that can make some kind of prediction as a machine instead of a human. And this includes machine learning, which obviously is the pattern recognition in data, which can be applied to data it's never seen before. But it's not exclusively machine learning. The field of natural language processing, which is dealing with human language, has a little bit of overlap with machine learning, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Although the area where this overlaps with machine learning is kind of where large language models reside. So large language models are a type of AI, or specifically a type of machine learning called deep learning, which it uses, which is based on the biology of the brain. And what makes them very special is that they work with very large data sets of text. So text goes in, text comes out. And because these data sets are incredibly large and the models are huge and take up lots of space in RAM, they're very general, and you can use it to answer questions it's never seen before. And this is called zero-shot prediction, and it's what makes it different from more classical AI that maybe you've seen before that gives you recommendations on websites like YouTube and Spotify. So it's different in that key way. But we know, everybody's already heard of it, everybody already thinks something about AI and what it's going to do to the industry. And that's where this interactive element of the presentation comes in. Hopefully most of you will have scanned the QR code, but it'll be back on the screen soon. We're going to make some statements about AI, and we want everybody to vote on what their opinion is. And then we're going to kind of show it to everybody, maybe give a bit of a short reaction to get an idea of what everyone thinks it's going to do to the industry and to you as a developer. So here it is again. If you forgot before, I see some people putting up their phone. Leave this on for a couple more seconds. I see there's 212 people currently in here, so we need quite a few more. You can also go to ahaslides.com/jspring23. You don't have to scan the QR code.
And if the QR code is gone and you still want to join, the person next to you probably has also QR, so you can also scan their QR. When you put in your vote, please remember to press submit, because I also was voting and then I pressed something and I was like, okay, why is it not happening? It's because you have to press submit.
All right. We're going to talk about the first statement, which is AI is going to replace developers. This is one that probably everyone has thought about, and some people might fear it. I think particularly there might be fear in outside of the software development industry, but we're curious what developers think. So is AI going to replace us? Are we going to lose our job because AI is going to write the code and developers are no longer needed? So you now have 30 seconds to vote. And we're going to see what everybody thinks. It looks like by far most people think it's very nuanced, which is perhaps a slightly more extreme than we were expecting. But
yeah, I would expect also a more spread out thing. And also a lot of people, or at least relatively a lot of people, think it's a gimmick, actually. I would expect less. But most people agree with my standpoint, actually.
I feel like the gimmick thing would have been a much bigger portion of the votes maybe a year or two ago. But I think by now most people have been convinced it's not.
Yeah. So, then actually a point that builds up on the previous one. Will AI enable non-developers, like my dad, who is 73, will he write software instead of me, or maybe with me, or maybe he's going to, that I have to complement his work with my thinking? So we have answers ranging from the non-developers will write most of the software, if not all, until developers will still be a crucial part of the process. Basically, nothing will change. So please put in your votes now.
Again, we're seeing a similar layout of votes, but it's a little bit more divided now.
That's good. Then we can bring on a discussion.
Yes, that will be very interesting. I think it's probably a little bit like low code, where there's use cases where it definitely will be able to replace it, but there's also plenty of use cases where it's not. Thank you for the votes, everybody. This is more divided, but it's interesting that almost no one thought that all software will be written by non-developers. So that's good news, everybody.
Our job is saved.
All right, next up is AI will improve the quality of software. I don't really have to do a whole lot of explanation on this one. Basically, we will be more efficient as programmers, catch more bugs, be able to write better tests, and in general, write better code through the assistance of artificial intelligence, because it knows a lot more and has a lot more context than we do. So let's go ahead. Decrease. Now I'm starting to feel like you guys are just fooling around.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine if there are like copy-pasted solutions from AI going into production, I can imagine that quality can decrease if there is not.
You are just way too harsh on AI. That's what I think. All right. Thanks for the votes, everybody.
Okay, but I still see that most people are very positive on this. So that's something. So will AI speed us up? I don't know how about you, but almost every manager that I've had until now, they always wanted me to go fast. As my Uncle Bob used to say, they want me to write twice the code in half the time. Well, maybe they'll get their wish with next-gen LLMs coming up. So we have answers lined up for you as well, from twice the code in half the time until maybe it will even decrease speed because we have to rewrite everything. So please put in your votes.
Again, pretty positive. No one thinks that all the code generated, is garbage.
There's a little bit of interference. Yeah, but still quite in the positive range. So before we continue, I just want to really quickly look at why we're here, basically. Because I can also imagine that maybe you're kind of sick of hearing about AI, and especially a lot of misinformation in the news. Frankly, I'm kind of sick of the misinformation. But I still think it's important to talk about AI here, because we can deliver a nuanced view. And I do think with the new gen of LLMs coming out, that it has the capacity to reshape our industry. And you can also see that a lot of people agree with that. There will be a shift. There will be something changing, and there's also good things about this, of course, because we can focus on more complex problems and not worry about writing boilerplate glue code. Frankly, I did not become a developer to write boilerplate and glue code and mess with that pesky API that is badly documented and well, maybe you get it, maybe not. But this maybe gives us a chance to automate that glue code. So that's where I wanted to stand still with why. Now let's go to the what. Where are we now with the current state of LLMs? I have two graphs for you that I will go over really quickly, and they have an obscene amount of detail, so please bear with me. I wasn't lying, but I want to grab your attention to two things on this graph. That is GPT-3 when it came out in 2020. Frankly, it didn't make much buzz. I didn't even hear about it until much later, actually. And of course, a little bit with Copilot coming out. But then, end of 2022 happened, ChatGPT came out, and the whole world went crazy. And this is where the sounds of AI is going to replace developers. It's already good enough to change everything and basically replace us.
Yeah, I think it's a very clear image, no questions.
Yeah. So I want to zoom in a little bit on GPT-4. And of course, this has also way too much information. The only thing you need to know is that the blue bars, the blue colored bars, are GPT 3.5, and the green one is GPT-4. And this has an accuracy rating. So 100% means that it completely agrees with what we humans deem the right answer, not the wrong answer. And this image is a little bit unsettling to me, actually, because I see with code about 70%, and that's GPT-4. That's one of the most advanced ones out there. And with GPT 3.5, it's even lower than 60, maybe even 55, maybe 50 even. So that means that in the best case with GPT-4, 30% of the time we get bad code, basically. That's what this graph says to me, at least. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not an expert on AI or anything. And with GPT 3.5, which is the default in ChatGPT, it's even worse. So that worries me. And I want to keep that image in your mind, and then Lennart can tell us a little bit about how can AI help you.
Yes. Right, so John has given us a little bit of context and nuance, but I think there's a lot of things to be excited about with ChatGPT. Maybe it produces bad code 30% of the time, but it produces good code 70% of the time. So that's good. And we've really thought about what are the different ways you can use tools like ChatGPT or other ones that might come out in the near future to improve your life as a developer. And the first one that I've got right here is rubber ducking. So most of you know what this is, right? You have a problem, you need to spar, or you have an idea, and you really want to have a bit of a discussion about it. And maybe your coworkers are busy, or maybe you don't like them. ChatGPT is actually pretty good at helping you consider different angles at a problem, and it works great as a rubber duck. There's also machine-augmented test-driven development. If you have a little bit of code, like we show right here, you can then ask the AI to give you some edge cases and maybe even some of the setup boilerplate, and this can help you get started quicker with testing as well as potentially think of edge cases you hadn't thought of yet. So it can really help you enhance your testing experience. It can help with whiteboarding. Some large language models, I don't think it's standard ChatGPT, but some of them have the ability to work with visualization. So you can help them draw out and visualize how some kind of system is supposed to work. And these tools can be great for that because, well, drawing out a system can be quite difficult. Then fast prototyping. Obviously, you have an idea. Maybe the business is not fully convinced yet and they want you to make a prototype. ChatGPT can help you with that. You just get started very quickly, get all of the standard boilerplate code out, and take a product to a minimum viable product stage as soon as possible to show whether your ID works or not. It's very good at these kinds of simpler setups where there aren't that many parts to connect together, so it's great for prototyping. That also kind of hooks into this automatic boilerplate and glue code. ChatGPT is very good with generic pieces of code that do standard things like maybe scroll your web browser or work with databases. You can typically tell it what you want it to do, and it can give you good code that gets you most of the way there. Just be aware that with all of these things, it does sometimes get it wrong, so always use common sense to verify or write tests if necessary. And when it comes to that, it can actually also do the reverse and help you in code reviews. You can give bits of code and ask ChatGPT what's wrong with it, or more specifically, how it can be improved and what new features you can use to make it better. You can also do this about structural areas of your program, and it can help you provide feedback. Just be wary that large language models tend to be quite verbose, so even if there's nothing wrong, maybe they'll give you feedback anyway. So be careful. The last thing I believe that we want to talk about was generated documentation. If you have documentation and you want to tune it better to a certain audience, maybe it's technical and you want to transform it to user manual documentation or help you summarize or add extra details or maybe even write documentation for pieces of code. Because this is all text and language, large language models are very good at this, and it can help you speed up documentation, which not only helps you save time, but also leaves your application better for the next person who works on it and your users. All right. Personalized teaching. I almost forgot about this one. This is actually my personal favorite. I'm a very curious person, and often I want to know something, but I don't feel like reading a blog article this long talking about it. I just have very specific questions I want answered. ChatGPT can do a very good job at that. You can ask it specific questions, ask it to summarize, and you don't have to read a lot of things that you already know or that maybe aren't directly related to what you want to know.
Yeah, so now that we know what we can do with LLMs, I want to also look at where we run into issues. I got sent this screenshot by a colleague quite recently. He had a Windows subsystem for Linux machine, VM, running on Windows, and it was hogging memory, but it wasn't using that memory, so it was just sitting there in the virtual machine. And he said, okay, I want that memory back because I want to use it on my Windows machine. And he said, okay, ChatGPT, is there a command that I can use to free up that memory and to give it back to the host machine? Well, yeah, of course there is. Shut it down. You have all your memory back. Of course, this is not what he meant. He wanted the machine to keep running, but he didn't give that constraint, now did he? So this is the problem with LLMs. They are probabilistic. So they will, like Lennart already said, it's quite verbose, it will always give you a result. It will not say, I don't know, or there is nothing. So actually it should say, no, there is no command to do this, or maybe I couldn't find a command that does this. So it basically gives a wrong result, and you have to steer it then. And when it makes a mistake, that's also a thing to look out for, that if it makes a mistake and you just keep chatting, so maybe he will say something like, yeah, that's not what I meant, I want another command to free up memory. It will keep that previous one in mind. So it will build on its own errors, and it will basically be a cascade of errors, and you're just talking in circles, and you're wasting your time, and maybe you even get bad code out of it, or whatever. You put that in production, and production is broken. So correct it. Then, there are some things to mitigate these issues, basically. The first one is context. If you're explaining something to a human, you also give them context. And if you're working closely with another person who's in the same project, there's already a lot of implicit context. But if you have someone who's new to the project, they will also ask for context. They want to know, what are the constraints? What do my stakeholders want? How does the code look? What are some examples of code that looks good inside the project? Give everything to it so that it knows what the context is. The other one is prompt engineering. I have a very nice resource that I use myself, that's learnprompting.org. And you can find a lot of tips and tricks there to basically instruct the AI in the right way. So it has some prompt hacking, stuff like that. So like you see in this example, it gives a question, then it says, okay, ignore the question and do something else. And you see if you formulate it in the right way, then you get the right answer. I'm going to skip this slide because we're actually already over time, so
Almost.
almost over time. I will just still skip it because I think we're already over 10, so I don't want to cut into your coffee and tea break. What I do want to say is please join us at our stand. So if you want to talk about AI or basically anything else, come join our hot sauce challenge. We'll have a nice conversation while eating some hot sauces. We have an AI minigame where you can program your own game AI, so it's not the LLM type of AI, but just program your own game, and we'll pit it against other players, and then the best one will win a prize. And if you're hungry, you can get some poffertjes and ice cream at our stand to basically satisfy your cravings. So I want to thank you very much for listening to two nerds talking about AI, and enjoy JSpring.